The final hero, Apollo, is here, and he is a very powerful duelist with a ton of mobility and spirit damage, as well as an ultimate that renders the enemies helpless and does a ton of burst damage. And today I want to show you exactly how this hero works and offer you a day one build to help you dominate your lobbies with Apollo. So up first, let's talk about his weapon. Obviously, he carries a sword, which is quite different from most of the cast, and he actually still ends up just shooting plain old projectiles. These are fairly large projectiles, but they come with a very short range. His range caps out at just 25 meters, and while there is no latent falloff, there is still that hard cap of 25 meters at which his projectiles will just poof into the ether. They just stop existing. And also his reload looks really freaking cool. Check this out. Yeah, I love that. That's such a cool animation. Really sick design. His melee attacks are less so, though. He doesn't actually use his sword for any of them, which I find to be immensely disappointing. His stats are fairly straightforward otherwise, though he's got pretty middle-of-the-road DPS on his weapon, especially once it ramps up with boons, and he doesn't have any strange spirit scaling to note on any of his stats here. He starts out with 740 health on lane and ramps up to over 2,280 health, which is very powerful. It makes him the tankiest of all the characters that we've gotten in this update, and I mean it makes sense, because as you'll see with his abilities, he is a very up-close and personal hero. His first ability is called Disengaging Sigil, and it looks a little something like this. He draws a sigil in front of him, and then it explodes, dealing 100 spirit damage and sending him backwards. It is a very good area of effect tool, with 1.3 spirit scaling on the damage component, and also a 30% movement slow for 4 seconds on affected enemies. But one of the best things about it is the cooldown coming in at just 12 seconds, so you can use this very frequently to harass your enemies, clear out jungle camps, do whatever it is you really need to do. The upgrades for it are also pretty nice. The first one just adds 30 flat damage to this, so you'll definitely want to pick this up in the early game for a lot of extra poke. The second upgrade gives you 20% fire rate and 50% bullet speed for 10 seconds, which is helpful if you're trying to play this character around his weapon. However, the bullet speed does not actually increase the range of his projectiles, so they will still disappear after 25 meters, but they'll just be easier to hit. The main thing here is that 20% fire rate. The third upgrade, however, is definitely the most intriguing. On player hit, +2 stamina restored and resets air jump and dash limit. So if you jump around doing some aerial acrobatics like this and then you hit the enemy with the sigil, you'll be able to do your air jumps and dashes again and get 2 stamina back. Very awesome ability, and it means that he has a lot of mobility just from this one ability alone, especially because this mobility has the quirk of not really being affected by gravity when you cast it. Now, if you cast it while you're already falling down to earth, then you will still fall very slowly. But if your velocity is just more lateral, then yeah, you don't fall at all. And you can also use this in a number of different angles. So you can summon an explosion there, for example, summon an explosion on the ground, summon it in the sky. And so this is a very, very flexible ability with a pretty good amount of skill expression. Skill expression really is the name of the game, because his next ability is called Riposte. Yeah, that's how you pronounce it. It's quite an interesting word that I didn't know until today. So this allows him to deflect the next incoming attack. On a successful deflection, he will briefly become invulnerable before performing a dash forward that stuns an enemy and reduces their bullet resist. However, notably, it does not do any damage, nor does it have any spirit scaling. So let me show you how this works. I'm going to make Ivy mimic me here, and then cast my riposte and have her shoot me. And as soon as I deflect her bullet, I charge forward, become invulnerable, and stun her if I hit her with the dash successfully. Now, notably, I don't actually have to deflect a bullet or even be looking in the general vicinity of the attack I want to deflect. So for example, if Ivy throws some kudzu down here, and then I walk into the kudzu, cast my riposte, it'll counter the kudzu, and then I can just dart off in this direction. So riposte is not just limited to bullet or even projectile attacks. This can actually block any ability in the game, including ultimates like Infernus's ult, Pocket's ult, etc. So, as long as you're able to time it properly, this is a very powerful tool. However, it is much more difficult than other defensive tools in the game like Pocket's Briefcase or Viscus's Cube, because it only deflects one attack and you only have a 0.8 second window with which you can actually deflect the attack. It's very rewarding if you time it properly, but when you have a lot of different bullets and other things flying your way, it can be difficult to actually time your riposte for the specific attack that you want to block. So let's talk about the upgrades now. First of all, this does have a 22-second cooldown, which is already low enough, but then the tier 1 upgrade gives you minus 7 seconds on the cooldown, bringing it down to just 15 seconds. And then the second upgrade doubles the bullet resist shred that you get, from 15 down to 30% bullet resist shred. That's actually a very big deal, and so again, if you're playing this character around his weapon, this is an upgrade you're going to want to get. And then finally, the tier 3 just adds 1.2 seconds to the stun duration, bringing the total up to 1.8 seconds. Notably, this is actually enough to heavy melee someone. So, if you want to play the sword character as a melee character, this is how you're gonna do it. His third ability, however, is really his bread and butter when it comes to playing a spirit build. It's called Flawless Advance, and it's actually a very complicated ability. So, you perform a series of lunges in any direction, delivering piercing stabs ahead of you. Hold your ability key to time your attacks, dealing more damage the longer it's held. Releasing your attack during the perfect window deals maximum damage. You have 3 max lunges, and you have 3 different damage values here. You have the base hold damage, max hold damage, and perfect damage. So let me walk you through how this works. If I just tap the ability here, well, it releases instantly, and I just stab this guy, and that gets me the minimum damage. So that's the first value here, the 32 damage. Now, if I go ahead and hold the ability down, you can see that this outer circle here slowly encloses until it reaches the center of my reticle. And if I reach the very center of the reticle there, that's where we get the max hold damage, which is 47. However, if I release the ability here, right in the middle where that second circle is, that's where we get the perfect 79 damage. So you want to try and time this attack as best you can to be in that third circle. However, you won't always be able to do this based on how the enemies are moving and what they're doing to counter you. Sometimes you'll need to release it early, and sometimes you'll need to wait a little bit longer to wait for an ability that they are using to counterplay you, like Counterspell or Viscus's Cube or anything like that. And further still, sometimes you'll just need to release it very early because, well, you gotta get out of the way and use your riposte, otherwise you're gonna die. But once you understand how to actually get the perfect damage every time, just time that out. It's very easy to use, and this thing does a ton of damage. And you can also use it to kind of dart around the battlefield and get a lot of mobility, because as you can see, if I hold my directional keys while I'm using it, I do a short lunge in whatever direction I'm holding before I end up going back in for that thrust. And the thrust can also send you through enemies, and if you do that, you will still do damage to them, as you can see here. So, don't be afraid to get basically up in melee range with this, and it's not like the enemies can parry it, it's not a melee attack. And it does also have some pretty good range to it, as you can see here. I'm still hitting the test dummy furthest behind Ivy just from all the way back here. So, it is a very powerful ability. You'll notice that the spirit scaling is already really good without any upgrades. The base hold damage and max hold damage are nothing to write home about, but the perfect damage starts out at 80 and ramps up by 1.6 damage per spirit power, which is really freaking strong. And considering that you have 3 max lunges, you can effectively take whatever the perfect damage is and triple it, and that's the maximum damage you could potentially get from this ability, which is really, really insane. If I just go ahead and grab Boundless Spirit here, yeah, we're already up to 220 perfect damage. One last thing to note about this is that it will also halt any of your air momentum here, so you're not going to be affected by gravity while using this ability. And you can even use it to kind of dart through the air like this and stay airborne for a good while. And if you theoretically combine this with the Disengaging Sigil and its restored air jumps, then you can do something really cool, where you just start dashing and doing stuff in the air, and then you can use your first ability and continue flying just like this. Also, in case it wasn't immediately obvious, you can use your other abilities in between your lunges. So I can do the first lunge here, then hit him with my first ability, then do the second lunge, then use my riposte, maybe shoot a little bit, and then I can use my third lunge just like this. So there is so much room for skill expression with this ability. There's a lot of ways to use it, and that's what makes it fun. But now let's take a look at the upgrades. To kick things off, we have the tier 1, where you get healed for each perfect hit. You get 37 healing, and this will also scale with spirit powers. So, a nice little bit of sustain as you're darting throughout the battlefield here doing tons of damage. The second upgrade takes 10 seconds off the cooldown, bringing it from 26 to a very low 16 seconds. Considering how powerful this ability is, that is a treat. And it'll also increase your lunge speed, so you're able to dart around and dodge attacks faster. The third upgrade, however, is probably the biggest power spike on this character for your overall tempo during a fight. It increases your perfect damage and spirit scaling substantially. It doubles the base perfect damage from 75 up to 150 and increases the spirit scaling of all 3 damage components. However, notably, it does not increase the healing you get. So as you can see, we go from 0.7, 1.1, and 1.6 all the way up to 0.8, 1.3, and 1.9. Spirit scaling on the perfect damage. Now if I buy Boundless Spirit, 314 damage on perfect hold. And, well, we have 3 of those. So we're looking at over 900 damage in total from this ability with just 1 item and this tier 3 upgrade. But you have to hit all 3 of your lunges perfectly. So, this is obviously a very strong spirit ability, and just from my testing, it is a lot of fun to use. Finally, we have his ultimate, Itani Lo Sahn, which is, it might look like total gibberish, and that's because it kind of is. It's written in Ixian, which, this guy is an Ixian, Abrams and Infernus are also Ixians, and this is the tongue that they speak. So, yeah, a nice little bit of flavor on the name of this ability there, but, this ultimate is insanely powerful. It causes Apollo to charge up and perform a long-range slash. Struck enemies are cursed and stuck in slow motion. And when this effect expires, they suffer devastating delayed damage, and it deals bonus damage against half-health enemies. And while in slow motion, Apollo is completely invulnerable, but the enemies will also take 70% reduced damage. Check this out. Itani Lo Sahn! He slows everybody down, is immortal there, and you can see that curse applied to the enemies, and then they take a huge burst of damage. Let me go ahead and reset my hero here so you can see the default damage value of 250, and it also has 1.8 spirit scaling. So once again, if you want to play this guy around spirit, you've got some very powerful damage scaling options here. This thing absolutely shreds, and it does 60% bonus damage to enemies that are below 50% health. So if I go ahead and shoot this Ivy just a smidge and then cast the ult, this is going to completely kill her, and instead of doing 250 damage there, it just did about 400, I think I saw. Oh man, you can just nuke half-health targets if you get this thing upgraded. And that is especially the case when we take a look at this ability's upgrades. So the tier 1 gives you plus 8 meters of dash range, which is nice for just confirming it on targets that are farther away. Well, bam! The second upgrade shaves 40 seconds off the cooldown, bringing it down to just an 85-second cooldown. That is really low, and if I get superior cooldown, we have a 6-7 second cooldown. Whoa, that's so cool. Jokes aside, that is a very low cooldown for an ultimate this powerful, so you'll have one of these basically every team fight you're in. The third upgrade is definitely the strongest. Plus 40% bonus damage to low HP targets, bringing the total bonus damage up to 100%. Double damage against low HP targets. This is effectively a Spirit Execute. If I go ahead and hit Ivy there, that just did 578 damage. What do you even mean? That is absurd. And if I get even more spirit scaling from something like Boundless Spirit, you see that this does 458 damage now. Double that is 900 damage in one spirit burst from this ultimate, if the enemies happen to be low. and all the while, they'll be cursed, meaning that you'll be able to interrupt any ability, including things like ultimates, and you'll just give the enemies a very bad time. Sinclair mains really do be winning this update because this is yet another ultimate that is disgustingly overpowered, and, well, they're just gonna steal it on a 40% cooldown. What the heck? So as you can see, this guy has got some options for build crafting. His first two abilities have powerful upgrades that can help you do more gun damage, but he also has a huge amount of spirit scaling. His first ability does a lot of spirit damage, and his third and fourth abilities are spirit damage juggernauts. He's got a lot of tactical mobility for use in a fight, as you can see, dodging around and weaving his way through his opponents. It's not exactly good for map traversal, unlike Celeste, our previous new hero, but it is great for just prancing around and being very hard to hit. And his ultimate is just an incredible disruptor tool. And before I forget, you can actually hold the button to delay the ultimate even more should you choose, which is actually a feature that Celeste ult has as well, but I didn't realize that when I first tested her. As a matter of fact, I didn't realize that for the first 2 days of playing her, so yeah, just wanted to point that out. You can time this even longer. But now I want to show you guys my day 1 Spirit Apollo build, and I will also be crafting a gun build for this character on my next stream, so make sure that you're subscribed here on the channel so you don't miss out on that. Should be a great time. But yeah, this guy does a ton of spirit damage, and so that's what I decided to build him for first. And since he is a close quarters character, he's another hero that benefits immensely out of Torment Pulse, and this, as always on a close quarters hero, ended up being one of the biggest sources of damage for me, but still less than the third and first ability. These two really do insane damage, partly because they have such good spirit scaling, and so later on down the line we do get Boundless Spirit and also Escalating Exposure because he's got a lot of different sources of spirit damage, and so he can ramp this up over the course of the fight, especially with the Torment Pulse ticking like this, as you can see. And so by the time I hit him with my third slash, I've already got 6 stacks of Escalating Exposure on him. So it's just a really good combo of items. I know I've already showcased this multiple times with many of the previous heroes, but it's just such a good way to build a spirit character. On top of that, we get superior cooldown. Even though his cooldowns are low, they can still be lower, and this is just good for overall tempo in a fight. As for my gun and spirit scaling, well, I'm getting Cultist Sacrifice and Spirit Shredder bullets for my gun scaling, because, well, it's not really a dedicated gun build, and I couldn't think of any better tier 3 for him than Cultist Sacrifice in conjunction with the Spirit Shredder bullets. Spirit Shredder bullets obviously make sense. Cultist Sacrifice gives him more ability range to make all of his attacks easier to hit, and it also gives him a little bit of bonus health as well as a ton of objective pressure. So really good bang for your buck synergy here. And then for the green items, we're actually overshooting the investment spike, and that's because these 3 are just all really good on him. And you are going to want some greens as you level up your character because he likes to get in the thick of it. He's going to end up taking a lot of damage, so a little bit of rezill always helps. But yeah, Spirit Lifesteal is just so good on this hero because he does so much spirit damage. Heal Bane is mandatory on a spirit build such as this for the anti-heal, and then Stamina Mastery helps so much in conjunction with his other abilities to just dart around the battlefield and not lose tempo because you have to wait for your stamina to recharge. So I really, really like this item on him. That's basically it for the items. I do have some experimental stuff like Echo Shard on the Riposte, but I haven't really gotten around to testing most of this stuff. Some of it is obviously a no-brainer, like Spirit Burn if you get super late game, and Transcendent Cooldown to upgrade your cooldowns. Others are a little bit more wacky, again, like the Echo Shard and the Mystic Reaver, potentially on the ultimate. I don't know if that's a good idea, might be a little bit too crazy. Finally, let's discuss the ability point order. There is a very obvious way to build him here if you're trying to maximize spirit damage, and that is to max out the third ability, because it is a huge damage spike. And I actually shifted this to even earlier in the build. Previously, I put 2 points into the ultimate before maxing out the third ability, but I think after my testing, maxing out the third ability super early on is just so good for your damage output because it adds that flat 75 damage plus even more spirit scaling. It's just so strong. And then after that, of course, we do max out the ultimate, but not before putting 1 point into the Disengaging Sigil and the Riposte in the early game, because both of these upgrades are super helpful. Both of these, however, don't really have good upgrades past their tier 1 for a spirit build. Disengaging Sigil is maxed out for its damage output with just the first upgrade, and while the stamina restored is certainly nice, we don't really care about the fire rate at all. And then Riposte doesn't do any spirit damage at all, and it reduces their bullet resist, not their spirit resist. So the 7 seconds of cooldown is nice, so that we can gain the survivability and the stun from this ability more frequently, but otherwise, these latter two abilities here are just so much more important to invest in. Now, the stun duration from the tier 3 and the stamina restored and air jump / dash limit from the Disengaging Sigil are both phenomenal. I've chosen to max out the Sigil next after getting both of these two abilities maxed out, and then finally end off with the stun. Now, you could totally do the opposite, and that would be absolutely fine, but that's what I've chosen to go for with this build. So, let me know what you think about Apollo, the final hero to be added in the latest batch of heroes to Deadlock. Do you think he's fun? Do you think he's strong? Do you think he's weak? And what tips do you have to play this character? I would love to hear all of it in the comment section down below. Personally, I think they've done a phenomenal job with this hero once again. He has some very fun abilities to use. I think overall this latest batch of heroes has been even better than the previous set they did back in August. I have had a blast playing with these characters, and yeah, this game's just been getting better and better with each update. But do you disagree? Again, let me know in the comment section. If you found this video to be helpful, make sure to drop a like and subscribe so you don't miss out on future videos from me. I've still got a ton of Deadlock content upcoming on the channel, and you will not want to miss out on that. With all that being said, thank you guys for watching. I will see you all next time. Peace out.